Hey everybody, it is April 2nd, and I would love to tell you that all of 2020 so far has been one incredibly elaborate April Fool's joke, but alas, it has not. So I've got some on this day in history for you today. I've got one current event as well. We'll start with the current event. Sam writes that the president, because of COVID, has extended the social distancing through the end of April. He was hoping to get everybody back to business by Easter. Not incredibly realistic unless we want to have the numbers of hospitalizations and deaths increase considerably. So thankfully, cooler minds prevailed and convinced the president that we need to social distance through at least the end of April. Don't be surprised if it gets extended, and it will be partially up to the governors as to how it all looks. Um, but we're going to continue on what we're doing for the foreseeable future. So go ahead and put that in Washington, D.C. According to my map, it's the first thing I have in Washington, D.C. itself for this semester. So that's kind of cool. We'll see if by the end of the semester we're not still together. I'll have to figure out a different way for you to hand in the map and quiz you on those places that things are happening. But I'll worry about that later. So April is a whole bunch of different stuff. Alcohol Awareness Month, National Poetry Month. So if you feel compelled to write poems right now while you're kind of in isolation, feel free. National Garden Month, which is totally awesome. It's a great time to start your garden toward the end of the month, maybe in Central Oregon. We always have that chance for frost. Keep America Beautiful Month, as long as you're doing it while social distancing. National Humor Month, which we all need right now. And then don't be surprised if you see campaigns about distracted driving. So texting while driving and other ways that you can be distracted. By the way, did you know that a guy got arrested? I don't remember how long it was. A couple of years ago, because his hamburger like fell apart all over his lap and he got into an accident and they charged him with distracted driving. So distracted driving just doesn't necessarily mean that you're texting while driving. It can be anything that has your eyes off the road when they really should be on the road. For our folder for today, for April, oh, I labeled it the wrong day, but it is indeed April 2nd, as you can see. Birthdays include Hans Christian Andersen. Born in 1805, he wrote the original Little Mermaid song, or Little Mermaid story, along with Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates. I remember that from when I was younger. It may be today or yesterday, I'm not sure which, International Children's Book Day. I love how a lot of children's book authors and even celebrities are reading kids' books online right now. And I think that's just awesome. And what a great way for them to try to work with morale using their very public platform. Speaking of stuff for kids, in 1979, Nickelodeon premiered. I remember being the first of my friends to have Nickelodeon because we had cable. I loved the show You Can't Do That on Television. And it's where they used to, that's where it started, where they would drop slime, which really looked like oatmeal with green food coloring in a really watery paste. But you can look up You Can't Do That on Television. And I remember watching that when I was really little. And then you can see other stuff up there on the folder. Pascua Floridae, Floridae Day, sighting of Florida by Ponce de Leon in 1513. Of course, he was looking for the Fountain of Youth, never did find it. And Claim the Land for Spain, which eventually we will get it through a whole bunch of negotiations. And it goes back and forth between us and Spain and France and Native Americans. One thing though that happened today, and I got the newspaper, if we were in the room, I would pop it up for you. It would be, hello, there it is, from the bulletin back in 2005 when Pope John Paul II died on this day in 2005. An amazing holy man, a pope for all the peoples. For those of you who aren't Catholic, which is probably most of you, the Pope is seen as kind of the ambassador for all of Christendom on earth for people who aren't Christian. And so popes in the past, including this one, as in Pope John Paul II, have negotiated treaties to end wars. They have been spokespersons for international campaigns. And Pope John Paul was pretty cool in that way. And I always thought it would have been neat to listen to him preach at some point in time, even though you all know I'm not Catholic. But he was loved by so many. So when he died, it was a pretty big ordeal. It took quite some time for the cardinals of the church to come up with a new pope. we had that pope very briefly, and then we had to come up with a new one. And if there was a Catholic in the room right now to speak up and tell us how it works, that would be great. But you can look it up. It has to do with white smoke and gray smoke and the Vatican. And so you can see the process of how new popes are picked. Once I get done with this video, I'm going to work on the 16-1 video for you. I'm also going to introduce the next component of your Chapter 15-16 test, which will be a pretty short slideshow on a person who's really important to the civil rights movement and was active primarily in the 50s and 60s. So look for that. I'll have that posted so that you can see what to do for that. We'll also take a look at that Great Society spreadsheet, and I'll point out a few interesting things about that once we get to the 16-1 notes. I wish I could see y'all in person. Miss y'all a lot. I'll see you soon.